From beautiful downtown Millheim, in the smack dab center of the Keystone State, this is Lou Bryson with Seen Through a Glass, the podcast that's mostly about food and drink in central Pennsylvania. Welcome to episode 55, Interview with the Bartender. One of the most popular episodes I've done was episode 41 with Al Pizza Boy Kaminsky, the outspoken brewer at Pizza Boy Brewing in Enola, Pennsylvania. Another was episode 47 with Pat Romano at the We Are Inn, and both of them were interviews you asked for. So when I asked again, what episodes would you like to see? Who should I interview? Well, I listened. And I was pleased to get an interview with the bartender who is consistently at the top of Center County Best Of lists, Skerrick Horner at Pine Grove Hall in Pine Grove Mills. You've already heard about him here. Kathy and I celebrated our anniversary at Pine Grove Hall in 2023, and I told you about the cocktails Skerrick made us way back in episode 4. I've been back a couple times, but not as often as I'd like. We took some friends there this past New Year's Eve for pre-dinner cocktails. Got there at 5, and it was delightful to have Skerrick almost to ourselves for about an hour. It's an experience I highly recommend if you can figure out how to swing it. You can tell him what you think you might like and how you like it, and he might make that. Or he might suggest a way to make it better or different, while delivering an off-the-cuff and intriguing mini-lecture on vermouths. Or you can order one of the menu cocktails he's come up with and find out why it works. What else is in this episode? Not a lot, honestly. The interview went about 50 minutes, and it was too good to cut much. So I don't want to keep you too long before starting it. I will tell you that I finally started bringing my whiskey collection home 2 years to the day that I moved it out so we could tear apart the house. I'm cataloging it this time, putting each bottle in a spreadsheet so I can track them and find them. Good thing, too, because I've already found a few beauties I'd forgotten about. You'll probably hear more about them in the future as I pull some out for tasting. I also want to tell you again about that little contest we've got going. Tell me your favorite central Pennsylvania regional foods like red beet eggs, ham pot pie, tea berry ice cream, peanut butter meltaways, soapies, unique pizzas. Then tell me what one you'd like me to do an episode on, maybe who would be a good person to interview for that. One of the suggestions I've had so far is pierogies, and I'm into that, but there must be more. Think about it, then send me a note at the podcast email, seenthroughaglass@gmail.com, or message me through the Facebook or Instagram pages. Whoever makes the winning suggestion on which food to do for an episode will get thanked on that episode and a 5-pack of podcast stickers. Then I'll do a random drawing from everyone who sent in a suggestion for another 5-pack of stickers. I really do need your help with this. Okay, let's get to it. Here's what I'm drinking today. What I'm drinking today is yet another drink from our friends at Liberty Pole Spirits in Washington, PA, because, well, Jim Huff just happened to send me a couple samples of their first run of canned cocktails, a little 100-milliliter can of Old Fashioned, made from their Liberty Pole Straight Pennsylvania Rye whiskey. It seemed appropriate, given that the episode is so cocktail-driven, and because during the interview, Skerrick and I agreed that an Old Fashioned should be drunk at home because it's so easy to make. And this is even easier. Canned cocktails have gotten so much better in the past 5 years, and the laws about buying them have become more lenient, even in Pennsylvania. So I thought it would be good to try one with you. I'm drinking it over ice with a recommended orange peel garnish. Here we go. Okay, it's poured. Orange peel is sitting in there nice. The whole thing, there's definitely that fresh zip of the orange zest floating over it. But the old-fashioned, the whiskey, the spicy rye, the syrupy bit of fruit that's in it, that's all right there in that half-inch over the ice. The look is clear, reddish. It's, kind of a brown garnet. Let's try this. Oh, yeah. Well, I was going to say, that's as good as any I could make at home, but that's not really saying a lot because I'm not that good at it. But this is great. It'd be nice to have a a little box full of these things handy. So I think this is, let me just take a look here. Yeah, it's 77 proof. So about a shot of whiskey, but the ice and the syrup and the fruit flavors really take the edge off of that 77 proof. So it's good. It's drinkable. It's sippable, but there's still at 77 proof enough power to keep it respectable. I'm going to have a hard time not drinking all that. And why not? Why not just drink it? I'm starting to sound like Bilbo, for God's sake. Yeah, that's pretty good. I would even go so far to say as it's soothing to a sore throat if I had one. It's kind of velvety. It's got a nice softness from the syrup. I like it. Like I said, canned cocktails have gotten a lot better in the last 5 years. And that's the Liberty Pole old-fashioned canned cocktail. I suspect that if this is a success for them, they'll be making others in the series. I don't know what the price is, but it'd be a handy thing to have around the house. And now it's time for Smack Dab in the Center, sponsored by the Happy Valley Adventure Bureau. What with this episode's interview with Pine Grove Hall's beverage manager, Skerrick Horner, I thought I'd tell you about some other great cocktail locations in State College. And don't overlook Flower and Stone, Pine Grove Hall's sister's establishment, which is right across the parking lot. In State College, a good place to start is Barrel 21, the distillery pub beside Otto's Brew Pub. If you don't know about their top-notch cocktail program, well, it's time for a pleasant education. Another brew pub connected spot is Anti-Fragile Brewing, where they will turn Pennsylvania-made spirits and mixers into magic in your glass. It's wonderfully local. The Hotel State College complex on College Ave offers multiple spots. The glamour of the Allen Street Grill, connoisseurship of the intimate lobby bar, camaraderie of Chumley's, and the relaxed fun of the corner room make for a crazily compact pub crawl. So why not keep crawling? Local whiskey is just around the corner, and it has a whiskey selection that impresses even me, and they know what to do with it. On down the block is our last stop today, Central Reservation, where the food and cocktails hit a reliably high level of excellence you'll want to experience. You'll find all of this and more, because I didn't even get to Bellefonte, on the Happy Valley Adventure Bureau website, happyvalley.com, under the Eat tab. If you're not a Center County drinker, either a native one or a Penn State alumni, you may not have heard of Skerrick Horner. When we're done today, you'll want to make his professional acquaintance. He's currently behind the stick at Pine Grove Hall, the sweet little restaurant and live music spot in Pine Grove Mills, dispensing drinks with a careful and judicious hand. Before that, he was at Fuji and Jade Garden in State College, which is where I heard about him when I first moved here and started sniffing out where to quench my thirst in style and ease. Sadly, by the time we had enough free time here to consider going out, COVID had slammed down its iron curtain. Still, people who knew such things told me that this was the guy to go see about a cocktail, so I did. You can go back to episode 4 to hear how that went, but I'll tell you briefly. Any bartender who counter-proposes the suggestion of a rye Manhattan with the idea of a cask-strength, 100% rye Canadian whiskey Manhattan absolutely has my attention. And yes, bartender, as you'll soon hear. Skerrick doesn't hold with the M word, as he put it, or mixologist. What he does say about it is that I'm a booze chef. I'm trying to achieve a particular goal. He does think about cocktails in a culinary fashion. They're not just ingredients, but it's how they're put together and how they work together. I'll explain one more thing ahead of time. He makes a joke about a hypothetical cocktail called a banana monkey and references monkey shoulder. That's a blended malt Scotch whiskey, and it's a favorite of mine that I like to keep on hand. It makes a great highball. I think that's about all you need. Let's go to Pine Grove Hall, everyone. Have a seat at the bar and relax. Hey, I'm here with Skerrick Horner. He's the beverage director and bartender at Pine Grove Mills. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Lou?
I'm okay.
Great.
All right. Appreciate the interview. I've been thinking about this for quite a while. Wanted to get this interview. So
sure.
Yeah. Let's set the scene. Where are you from originally? How'd you become a bartender, and where?
I'm from a small town near Gettysburg, a place that you've actually been to in one of your journeys, Hanover, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Snacktown.
Snacktown. I came here to go to Penn State, studied filmmaking, decided that wasn't for me in the long run, and ended up in the restaurant business, which I'd been doing already since I was 16. So,
like many of us.
Yeah. So I managed a coffee shop for 5 years, worked in Asian restaurants for a few years, a pizza shop. Then during COVID, I sort of landed here.
Okay.
Pine Grove Hall.
Before we get any further, I already introduced you as such. Bartender is the word?
Yes.
We go with bartender, not any
I don't use the M word.
Okay.
I despise the M word.
That's good. Okay. You have a strong area reputation. As I mentioned, I've wanted to get this interview at least partly because so many people told me I had to.
Interesting.
Where did that develop? Where did that start?
What?
Well, I mean, where did you start bartending here in the area?
I'd wanted to bartend ever since I was 21 years old.
Okay.
But as a manager of a local downtown haunt told me, you're going to have to work the door for a year. Well, when you do the math on that versus, how much the door guy makes and how much the rent is in Center County, it wasn't going to pay the bills.
Yeah, that's a hard
even
year.
having multiple jobs. So, I just kind of bided my time and didn't worry about it and focused on other things. At one point, like I said, I had worked in a Chinese takeout place for a while, and that boss called me one day while I was working at a pizza shop and said, "Hey, come over and I want you to see our new place." He wanted me to help get the takeout counter started, and then he had applied for a liquor license and asked me to help him find a bartender, which I did. We went through one bartender. He was there for about a month, and wasn't the gig for him. It just wasn't a good fit. Okay. Tried someone else.
And what kind of bar did they want it to be?
Well, that was it. It was kind of. Oh, the other bartender, you mean?
No, I mean the owner.
The owner. They had never. This is his first sit-down restaurant, and it was. He'd never worked, had a liquor license before, so it was kind of an open-ended question at that point. After the second bartender wasn't for her either, I said, "Why don't you let me give it a go?" And he said, "Well, you don't have a license." I said, "I've already looked into that. In New York City, you need a license. In Pennsylvania, you don't. Give me 30 days, and if you're not happy, we'll find someone else."
That's fair.
Yeah. And there it is.
I take it worked out.
Yeah, I worked behind that bar for about 13 years.
Wow. Okay. And what period of time was this?
This was 2006, roughly, to right before COVID.
Okay.
It was a 265-seat Chinese, Japanese menu restaurant.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that big.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Hibachi tables. It was so. There's a sort of a mindset to a restaurant like that in Asian and American sort of cultures. So, you kind of have the ideology sort of preloaded, and you get to run with it. And so I did that around 2009. A friend of mine, Nell Mellon, she went to Penn State. She owns a bar, or is part owner of a bar in New York City called Otto's Shrunken Head. Okay. It is a punk rock tiki bar in Alphabet City. And incidentally, her former doorman was the guy who crafted the vampire fangs for Interview with the Vampire.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
New York, gotta love it.
But she said, "I want you to come to New York. I want to take you bar hopping." And I ended up, it was February, I think, 2009. And we were bar hopping. We went to, I think it was 8 bars in 9 hours in the middle of a blizzard. It was nuts.
Yeah.
Going across the Brooklyn Bridge in that weather was kind of strange. But one thing I immediately noticed was that every bar we went to, they had a glass of water in front of you, unless it was one of the 2 bars we went to where it was standing room only.
Wow, okay.
Nobody in Center County was doing that. Uh-huh. And where I grew up, when you went to a restaurant, there was always a glass of water in front of you. And when I moved to Center County, nobody had a glass of water in front of you. It was strange.
Yeah,
it's a strange cultural difference between small town and medium-sized town. Mm-hmm. And that New York had that level of conscientious management and service struck me immediately. And then we were trying the drinks. Center County wasn't serving anything like these drinks. And the place that stuck with me the most probably was the Raines Law Room. The Raines Law Room is what people around here would call a speakeasy, and it kind of follows that paradigm. You knock on a door that is unmarked, a butler answers the door in very fine attire and says, "May I help you?" And you have to know to say that I'm here for drinks. And if you're a group of people, he'll say, "I'm not sure we have room for you. I'll take your number and call you back when we have room." He may or may not call you back because they don't take groups. They don't. They take you to a seat and they sit you down and say, Queen Anne chairs, things like that. So sofas. This is your seat. If no one will approach you until you pull the chain on the wall. It was all about intimacy.
Yeah.
Sort of the exact opposite of every sort of establishment in Center County. And it's like, wow, this is really, really neat. And I wish. I'm still not sure Center County would get it, but I would love to see it tried.
Don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be really popular for about 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the sports fanatics just would not be able to wrap their heads around it.
No.
Yeah.
No, and the rest of the people, well, no. No.
Yeah. But, the point, the reason Nell took me on that little bar crawl was she wanted to show me the possibilities and to try her tiki drinks because she knew that we were playing around with tiki in the Asian restaurant, as you do. And that's kind of what gave me a boot in the ass to start making better cocktails.
Okay. I'm going off my script here. I always
script
questions. I do. I'm a writer. It's what I do. But something just popped in my head when you were talking about going to a tiki bar. I won't say that your cocktails seem like tiki, but they have the same multiplicity of.
The audience can't hear me nodding right now.
Wow, yeah.
There's
an influence there.
There is an influence because tiki was about post-prohibition lazy style bartending, where a lot of syrups and juices and things were thrown together, and they were often a juicy, sugary mess. They don't have to be, but they often were.
Right.
But when you take that bartending technique, that post-prohibition sort of style, which really stuck up through the 80s for most bars, of just throwing stuff together, and then
I worked at those bars.
Yeah, of course. And you pair that with proper bartending technique that was lost post-prohibition for the most part, you start to see better, more efficient ways to do things. And where you can learn to cut corners on classic technique and be able to work that 265-seat restaurant, right? So, that's kind of what I took from that style of bartending and then trying to put it together and, constantly reading the David Wondrich, the beverage historian, and his work, and others online, and Audrey Saunders and Gaz Regan and all that. They all had very interesting things, and they are very interesting techniques and recipes, and they helped push the culture. And they're touchstones. I don't look at them as, one of my sort of mantras is no gods, no masters. Everybody has the potential to teach you and to learn from them. So I don't put people on pedestals, but you recognize their good work. So yeah.
Let's get right into. I'm looking at the bar. You're beside it. What do you want behind the bar for you to work with? Clearly, you need spirits, but you also need garnishes, juices, bitters, tools, and instruments of the trade. What's the? I'm thinking of there was a place in Boston, Drink.
Yeah.
And he had 40 bottles, and that was it.
And you didn't know menu, and you walked in and said,
yes.
Hey, I'm feeling this today.
What do you got?
Yeah.
So what do you need behind the bar?
Brands matter to me.
Okay.
Bar tools.
Well, actually, let me, because that's a good place to jump in on another question that I had. is it more important to have a lot of different spirits or a smaller selection of really good ones? Or would you rather have both?
Well, I think one of the I don't like to use the word mistakes, but missteps, I guess, that a lot of bars make is that they don't have an abundant selection of modifiers.
Oh, okay.
Of liqueurs. It's all the hard stuff, and they don't have anything creative to work with. Yeah, they've got a bottle of cheap triple sec. They've got a bottle of cheap raspberry liqueur sitting somewhere. They might even have Chambord, and there's other brands out there that I think are much better than the most popular brands that people have heard of. I'm not a Chambord fan, plain and simple.
Okay.
I think I can find other brands from France, from Belgium, wherever, and that produce better results and often at an equivalent or cheaper price. And a lot of clientele that, particularly those that are older than me, I'm 52, 3 something, they grew up in brand culture in terms of I drink this brand, and it's a status thing.
Yep.
And that's antithetical to what I do. It's not about brands for your own ego. It's about brands for producing the results I want to express in the glass. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does, because, I mean, a well-known and solid brand, I mean, if nothing else, it's good. That next bottle is going to be the same as this bottle.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then you're dealing with small batch things. There's a small batch distillery in Hershey, Hidden Still. They're just getting their feet on the ground. And my God, they've got some really great stuff.
I'm sorry. I'm really glad to hear you say that, because I keep saying that and no one's listening.
No, I believe you. I believe you, because it's not Maker's Mark. It's not.
I know, it's made here. It can't be any good,
right? Well, and that you can't blame them. Pennsuluia's not known for its spirits.
Fair enough. But yeah,
but
good.
Yeah, but that said, they're
by the way, you're on my list. David, call me. I want to interview you.
They got the the Overholt family, which produced whiskey for generations and generations, handed Hidden Still their recipe for Old Farm Rye, which was mothballed after Prohibition. The first batch was brash, young. Quite frankly, if you took a straight shot of it, not good.
Well.
And then the second batch came along, and it was better. And then the third batch came along, and whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah, you'll learn.
Like really, really like good wood quality. And I contacted them and said, whatever you just did, keep it up. And then the next batch came out, not quite as good. But you know what? That's the way it is.
Oh yeah.
And when you have the ability to taste small batch products and recognize that the quality differences, and then know what to do with them within a recipe that you've crafted around a particular product like that.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, if I was using bourbon and rye in a recipe using Old Farm rye, and it's like, okay, I'm going to pull back the Old Farm just a little bit, because that youthfulness that they brought back into the batch is just a little too much. I'm just going to tweak it a little bit with some Rittenhouse, also classically known as Pennsylvania rye, now produced in Kentucky, I believe. But it's 100 proof. It's got earthiness. It's got that peppery bite that and can really help tweak the flavor of the Old Farm to get it to where I want it to be in the glass. And there's purists who go, well, why would you do that? I had a guy here this past week.
And what they're saying, you should just use Rittenhouse?
I should just use one thing in the glass. And they had a guy here this past week who could not wrap his head around the fact that I was putting rye whiskey and mezcal into a glass at the same time. Like, why would you do that? Because I'm a booze chef. I'm trying to achieve a particular goal. And you know what? This isn't even my recipe. This recipe came from somewhere elsewhere in the country. Like, I don't come up with these ideas necessarily. I borrow these ideas, or
Sorry, one of my favorite booze, David Wondrich, Harold Punch, rye and funky rum. And I still remember, I had it was blood orange season, and I bought a whole bag of them at the supermarket. And I thought, I'm going to make Harold Punch. And I went home, and I think my wife came home maybe 2 hours later, and I'm on my third one, and I was just, she had to have one. It was, God, they were good. Yeah. And it's, I mean, if Wondrich hadn't put that recipe, and this is when he was writing the column for the magazine I was editing, if he hadn't put that recipe, I would have never put those two together.
Sure.
And now I don't even hesitate.
Yeah. And it's amazing what a quarter ounce of Islay Scotch will do to a cocktail that's otherwise rum or whiskey or even gin based.
Yeah.
Like,
just spins it right on.
Yes. And it doesn't have to be whiskey forward just to achieve that little tweak. And that's what I'm trying to get our local clientele to sort of understand. And they're a lot of them are really starting to get it. They're not as afraid, but there's still a contingent that just can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. My grandpa never did that. I would, that sort of, yeah.
You have a number of bitters, tinctures, whatever, that you make yourself.
Less than you think.
Okay. Fair enough.
My friend Wink, who bartends downtown, he has a peppercorn tincture recipe that he very graciously gave me.
Okay.
And it's quite simple. Cinnamon tincture as well. Sometimes I'll do Earl Grey. A previous chef here made mushroom tinctures, which I still have some. And, you make a gallon of mushroom tincture. You're not using that up too fast. That'll last you a while.
So how come? It's the only way to get those flavors, or?
Well, the first chef was just messing around and looking for interesting ideas. That's all. Because he was looking to apply them both front of house and back of house, at the bar and in the kitchen in certain ways, because you can make a dish pop, hydrosols, which are something I never knew about, but that's essentially what rose water is. It's a hydrosol. It's distilled water with rose added, for instance. But there's local farmers and such making lavender and rosemary and sage and lemon verbena. And so a chef in the kitchen can take and put that in a mister bottle, hit a salad with it right before it goes out to the table, and the first thing the customer smells is boom. And that kind of magic is what culinary people have been doing for decades. And bars are starting to figure it out, and that's exciting.
I saw somebody flame the peel. Sure. I just went, oh my God.
Yeah, and why are you flaming the peel? It's not. It flares up and looks fancy behind the bar. Is it showmanship? Yeah, it can be, but it's also functional. And moving back to what you asked me about garnishes and things like that, I hate garnishes that aren't functional.
Okay.
Rare instance, I will make exception as those tiki drinks with the flowers in them. I get it. The little plastic monkey. Okay, fine.
All part of the show.
But generally speaking, I want my garnishes to be functional. My bar tools, I buy expensive bar tools. I don't buy them very often because when you buy expensive ones, they last for a long time. Right. But I used to use one, and I use them now at home. My bar spoons have a paddle on one end and a spoon on the other end. And most people don't know this. You're not supposed to use the spoon end for stirring. You're supposed to use the pendulum end, the other end. Okay. The idea is to move the spoon through the glass so that you're moving the ice but not agitating the ice to get a smooth mix, and it will chill quicker without making a whole bunch of noise. Mm-hmm. Well, working here at Pine Grove Hall, we're also a live music venue, and we sometimes record our shows. So sometimes, depending what's happening on stage, the bartenders have to take extra steps to make sure that we're not interrupting the show. Uh-huh. That often means trying to shake with the rhythm of the band.
Oh my God.
And if you're stirring a drink, again, not making a lot of noise, especially if it's a quiet performance. And so I made sure I got rid of all those bar spoons that had the paddles on one end and got ones that are just a pendulum on one end that make even less noise. Mm-hmm. So, little things like that actually make a difference in a place. So,
Wow. I just because I love highballs. And I know my son was just on vacation and had highballs in Japan. Mm-hmm. And it's you don't want to say religion because that gets insulting, but it's down to the direction of the stir?
I agree with the direction of the stir.
Really?
Yes.
Tell me about that, because that's always fascinating me.
My thing on that, it's a little tongue in cheek, but if you study classical magical practices, and I mean magical with a K,
okay.
you will learn that clockwise is invoking and anti-clockwise or counterclockwise is banishing.
Okay.
Do you want to banish your spirits in your glass? No.
Okay.
Come on.
All right.
Always stir clockwise, people.
Okay. All right. Also behind the bar, how important is the right glassware?
Having the right size glassware is extremely important. Having the right balance, a lot of people over the years have decided they hate stemware, particularly the V-shaped martini glass. Mm-hmm. V-shaped cocktail glass. Right. Even I catch myself with that one. But, it's a visual for people.
Sure.
So they're listening. They're not watching.
Yeah.
But you have to have a glass that's balanced. You have to be able to pick it up. The base of the glass has to be of a right diameter that when you get liquid in it, it has to be balanced once there's liquid in it. It's not about the balance when it's empty.
Right.
So making sure your manager, your owner, that you as the bar manager, if you're in charge of ordering those things, are getting test glassware, not just mindlessly buying a case because they look pretty.
Right.
That's important. In this place, our rocks glasses have to be stackable.
Space.
Yeah. And they chose, before I even worked here, they chose to chill the rocks glasses and the cocktail glasses. And I thought, I never did that before. I always did it a la minute whenever someone ordered a drink. I would chill the glass with ice in it and club soda. But no, it's actually much more efficient to just have them in the refrigerator.
Okay.
Now, could that refrigerator be used for better purposes? Maybe. But,
It also works for that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. People see the bartender, obviously. I mean, you're almost exactly on stage. You're right there. They don't tend to see the other people, the bar back. I don't think.
Well, we don't do
have
that.
one.
We don't
Okay.
refer to. We are co-workers. We are
Okay.
we are co-bartenders.
Okay.
And though one bartender may have less experience than the other, I just had this conversation with a new hire last night. When we're behind the bar, you and I are equals.
Okay.
When it comes to me teaching you the technique, obviously there's a dynamic there, but I don't want this to ever come across as master and student for any reason, as we discussed earlier. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are surprised about that from me, from things they think they've heard about me, and I think that that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because I don't approach the bar as that dysfunctional thing that I think it is, and can be. It doesn't always have to be.
Sure.
And when I have to make a call of, that drink doesn't look right or that drink doesn't taste right, make it again, that's when I have to make the call.
Yeah.
Or, hey, on certain nights we have to dress a little differently, let's not wear this to work on these days, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the bar's got to work.
Yes.
Yeah. And I feel even odd saying this. I don't know. Do you have a philosophy, a guiding principle of some kind when you're coming up with new cocktails?
Oh, well.
Oh, did that go in a different direction than you were expecting?
No.
Okay.
That's interesting. So sometimes you start with ingredients that just happen to sing and you look to see how you can further make them sing, right? And then other times you have a concept in your head that's like a name, you've
okay.
I don't know, shove two words together, banana monkey. Okay, you already know what a banana monkey is going to be, right? Because, I don't know, monkey shoulder and banana. I mean, duh.
Sure.
No, and actually that might be good.
That might be
good.
Yeah.
But you guiding principles of culinary. I turn to culinary all the time to see what the flavor Bible. I don't own a copy of it. I have a friend who does, and every once in a while I'll say, "Hey, can I look this up in your?"
Okay.
But the flavors are more intuitive to me. I have a very good sense of smell. That's one of my physical attributes that I can say I am proud of. I can spot when flavors are going to mix just by holding two bottles up against one another often and be correct. Not always. It doesn't always work that way. But what was your question again? Oh, guiding principles.
Yes, sorry.
No, I mean, a lot of it is culinary. A lot of it is looking at tradition. And, and I have arguments with customers about this all the time. I'm not afraid to have arguments like this. Oh, you made this drink for me and we're going to name it blah. I'm like, no, you can't name it that. There's already a drink called that and it's nothing like that. Well, but I want no. No. There is convention in cocktail naming and it's just like racehorses. If you're riffing on someone else's recipe and you've changed their recipe enough, but it still has its DNA, you have an obligation to give it a new name, but to also riff on that name so that chain of custody, so to speak, is sort of obvious.
This is like all the different neighborhoods of Manhattan variants,
sure.
That kind of thing?
Yeah. That's a good example.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's always fascinated me. Yeah. Why do you come up with new cocktails?
I do it when I'm inspired. I don't necessarily go out, so I'm going to make a new cocktail today.
Okay.
That's not the way it works. Inspiration finds you.
Okay.
It's like the artists often say, like, you have to ask, well, I've said this about cocktails. You have to ask the cocktail how it wants to be presented. You don't put your ego on the cocktail. If it wants to be in an up glass, why does it want to be in an up glass? Why is it asking for that? If it wants to be on the rocks, why does it want to be on the rocks? Well, in that instance, maybe it's because having a little more dilution as it sits for a bit turns it into something more magical than it was when you first poured it. And a lot of people don't get that.
And do they? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
But I had to ask, do they evolve sometimes?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
you'll change something if you find a better way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, we last menu, we were serving a drink from Charles Jolie from the Aviary in Chicago. Drink I found that recipe back around 2012. It's called the Affiliate, and it's sherry, cherry liqueur, and rum. And whatever rum Charles was using, I didn't have access to, and so I kind of made it work with two rums.
Okay.
So my mantra when I'm making it is cherry, sherry, rum, rum. It's easy to remember the recipe.
Right.
But what Jolie did in building the drink, he built it over minimal ice in a cocktail mixing glass, and just a few cubes. And then he built the glass with the bitters in the bottom of the glass. Two kinds of bitters, Angostura and orange. Jumbo rock on top in the glass, and then you just pour that.
Oh, what you've
mixed, you just dump it in, and you're going to have just the remnants of a cube of a tiny cube from your melting in with the jumbo cube that's in there, and it'll disappear in a hot minute. And then you garnish it with an orange twist.
But you let it sit. You don't stir it once it's in there.
You don't stir it. And you tell the customer when you set it in front of them, you tell them where the drink came from, that it's not your idea. It was the guy who made it was in Chicago, and that his idea was that you don't agitate the glass. Don't be fidgety with your glass. Again, mindful drinking.
Right.
And that as you drink this drink, it goes from this one thing and it just gets chocolatey. It gets deep in a way that it wasn't. It was bright when you started. And that slight dilution and the bitters being in the bottom of the glass, it's a brilliant build. And I would never have thought of that.
Yeah.
But I learned from stuff like that. And so those ideas go into.
Then you can make, right.
Yeah.
Right. A drink that may be completely different, but same technique. Wow. How do you feel about ice? And I ask this because whenever I get a chance to talk to bartenders I respect, I get to talk to Dale DeGroff once. I talked to Phoebe Esmond. I talked to a lot in Philadelphia. Somehow the conversation always winds up at some point going to ice.
Sure.
Is ice fetishized?
Ice is a little over fetishized.
It is, isn't it?
Especially by the customer.
Okay.
I'll go into it a little more, but one of the things that always bugs me is I want a jumbo cube. Well, we have a policy here where you only get a jumbo cube if you order a double or our cocktail dictates.
Okay.
So there's an interesting psychology to that jumbo cube in the glass, and
that's a wave it around too thing. Right?
Yeah. And this is the part of the business I don't enjoy talking about. There's like the psychology of this. You're in a live music venue. We're here to serve you, but we also need to make money. And if you're sitting there with a jumbo rock of ice in your cup and you're otherwise empty, but you want to hold on to it just because it's that rock you ordered, well, we're not making money. I'm sorry. I can't. We got to pay the rent here.
Yeah.
And so that's why we only serve a jumbo cube on a double. Because we found the psychology of that ice cube being in the glass, even when it's empty, means that glass doesn't want to leave the table, means they don't want to have another glass in front of them. And I'm not saying that, I understand that, people don't want to overdrink, and I don't want people to overdrink.
Right.
But I think if you want your favorite bars to be there, you need to be able to financially support them.
Yeah.
But then going back to just the ice question in general, hollow cubes. They're called quarter dice in the. I'm
not even familiar with these.
They're a cube that's.
That have like the cup in them,
yeah,
like ice machine ice.
Well, yeah, it's ice machine ice that you find at a
motel,
at a convenience store or whatever.
Yeah.
Good motels don't have. Oh, motel, yes.
Yeah,
motels
that's what I
don't
meant.
have.
Sorry, yeah.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
these are the kind of places we used to pull up to in college and just scoop headbag ice out real quick. Yeah.
No, but they're not supposed to be hollow. They're supposed to. The machines are supposed to let the ice stay on the whatever.
Oh, it's just moving too fast?
It's moving the ice a little too fast, so it's hollow. Or, it needs to be descaled. There's all sorts of reasons why these cubes are not as good as they could be. But there's companies like Hoshizaki, Japanese. Their machines have the least amount of moving parts. That means there's less things to break inside of the machine. And their ice is dense. And the style that, they make different styles. They make full dice, quarter dice, half dice, and that's the size of a cube. And theirs are less, again, they don't have that problem with being hollow. And then the other one that they make is called Half Moon Briquette, which is what we used at the Chinese restaurant. And I didn't know what I was getting at the time. And my God, I fell in love with them.
Wow.
Because you can jam a water glass like we're drinking out of here now, full of ice, and it stays packed together so that it doesn't melt so quickly, and it's just dense. And we have in this business, Pine Grove Hall, we have an ice machine that is the hollow, terrible cubes. It's what we got when we moved in, and when we opened up Flower and Stone, our new sister restaurant next door, I just lobbied and lobbied and lobbied. Yes, you're going to spend $1,000 more on this ice machine, but it's going to be less likely to break, and you're going to have better quality ice at that. And that machine at Flower and Stone pumps out ice so quickly. And the one here it takes forever for it to produce cubes, which is interesting. I never got to witness it side by side. So no, the quality of the ice is extremely important. People say, why don't you do ice spheres? Because frankly, they are a pain in the butt to produce. Why don't we have fully clear ice? Because you need to look up the physics of that, and you tell me how we're going to scale that to a business, even as this is a small place,
right? And
that's not scalable. And we do jumbo cubes. They're 1.5 to 2 inch cubes, depending on how full we fill them. Silicone mold, and we have to harvest those at least once every other day to keep up. Yeah.
I forget, somebody has a machine that does them, and I was all excited because I finally have a bar in my house.
Yes.
And I looked at the price, and then I looked at
the sphere thing, you mean?
No, it's a square. It's a cube, but you get one every 30 hours.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right.
I can't do that.
And you get 2 cubes, actually, in a lot of the ones I've seen, where it's and you have to cut it in half somehow.
Oh, God.
And, but one half of it is cloudy because it forced the air into one half of the neoprene chamber, and then the other half is clear. And the science is interesting. It's fun.
Right.
Everybody loves to see if you could put a rosebud in the middle of that.
Yeah.
That perfectly, clear sphere, sure, that would be beautiful. But is it functional? No. Let's get back to being functional.
Yeah. Okay. When you're working a shift, you're not just making cocktails. You're helping customers select a neat spirit, a wine, a beer.
And food.
And food. Oh, of course you are. How do those conversations go?
I mean, with wine, I mean, a lot of folks will sit down and they'll order a glass of wine, and they'll, how do you put this? They order based on their knowledge of wine that they have thus far. They order based on what their grandpa drank, what their mom drank, what all sorts of things that they order because they've heard of it. Mm-hmm. That's why Cabernet, Merlot, Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, and Pinot Grigio are the top-selling wines because people heard of them, and it's a self-perpetuating thing. People will never find new wines if they keep drinking only those. And so I always tell folks, when you sit down and you're thinking about a glass of wine, think about what you're going to order for food, because if you put the wrong food with it, the food's going to suffer, the wine's going to suffer. They both will be less enjoyable than they could be. And it's not always intuitive even on somebody who's been doing it for generations. Right. But yeah, so little things like that. I encourage them to think mindfully about what they're going to drink. If they are starting with a cocktail, and they talk to me about scotch. Like, that might take over your palate. You might want to consider holding off on the scotch until after dinner. A
great time for scotch.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
I tend to have cocktails before.
Sure.
Is it hard to make a cocktail that goes with?
No. When I was managing that 265-seat restaurant, we had a cocktail menu that was 50 drinks long, plus seasonal suggestions.
Okay.
And we changed out the regular menu once a year. Here at Pine Grove, we're doing anywhere between 10 and 13 drinks on the regular menu, and that changes about every 8 weeks or so.
Okay.
Or half of it will change every 8 weeks, that sort of thing. And it's more difficult to point out drinks when you're working with a small beverage menu than if you have a large beverage menu. I'm a huge fan of large menus. Huge fan of large menus. I would rather see a book broken down by spirit categories or whatever, mm-hmm. Eclectic, that's just the tiki mishmashy sort of concepts in a separate section. But if you're recommending drinks for people, like clearly there's things that I hate when I say clearly like that. It makes me sound like a pompous ass. The classic pork chops and applesauce. Okay, so there's flavors that.
Sorry, my wife says that all the time.
There's flavors that go together. It's just it. So if you're having a beautiful pork roast of some sort, then a glass of cider might be up your alley, mm-hmm. or a gin martini with maybe a whisper of apple brandy, just to kind of give it a little nudge.
Okay, and
some fresh ground coriander on top. I do that sort of thing at home. I don't have fresh ground coriander here behind my bar yet. I was thinking about the other day, why don't I do that? But yeah.
Again, going off, but now you've gone and tweaked that in my head. How do you apply spice to a cocktail? Various ways?
It depends on how it like cinnamon needs to be extracted first for it to really kind of get its. But sometimes a little fresh crack of dust on top is fine. Coriander really needs to kind of be at the last, right before you serve it, because that, and
that would never occur to me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Rosewater is added as a mist on top, and most of the time. Sometimes bitters, our cocktail bitters, and again, as you've pointed out, we've got about 20 different ones back there right now, and they're all very different from one another. And sometimes you build them in the mixing glass, in the shaker. Sometimes you add them to the glass, and like we discussed earlier, in the bottom, and let the drink develop as the customer drinks it. And other times you just put them on top, so that's the first thing they smell. So yeah.
Yeah, all depends on what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What responsibilities do you have that don't involve serving drinks? What else does a bartender do? I mean, I know there are stuff. What?
Well, I help curate the available tea selection here.
Really?
And I also volunteer that at Cafe Lamont over in Lamont. They asked me years ago, because I managed a coffee bar for 5 years, and they liked the way I managed the tea selection. I was like, hey, you're not doing that anymore. Would you manage ours? I'm like, sure, okay. I don't get paid for it. I just get free coffee and, a gluten-free scone or something on occasion, whatever. But so I manage tea selection here, at our sister restaurant. We're working on now scaling up for breakfast service over there. So what opportunity that opens up, and then so having access to those ingredients, and I also blend some of my own teas, so that
feeds back.
It feeds right back in. So that's all the same skill. It's just different method of doing it, right? So yeah.
Have you had the few whiskey that's proofed with tea?
No.
I mean, because when they dump the barrel, and then instead of proofing it with water, they proof it with tea.
Makes perfect sense.
It's a brilliant idea. They have a tea and a coffee.
Sure.
I think the tea's better.
Huh.
See, there's all kinds of...
This is, and then people look at me like I'm from...
No, this is what small manufacturers should be doing.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
Because how are you going to set yourself... I mean, yeah, you can't be too gimmicky.
No.
You have to be able to do it right, but then you also have to be able to be creative. It's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the only thing that's free. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was... actually, I got a chance to talk to John Doyle. He's been a bartender at McGillen's in Philadelphia for 50 years. He just celebrated his 50th anniversary. I've known John for years. Great guy. Not really a cocktail maker, but a bartender.
Sure.
And we talked about what makes a great bartender. Making drinks is one part of the gig. What's the rest of it?
I mean, there's a certain amount of knowing when your customers want to be spoken with, and there's knowing when to be quiet.
Yeah.
And my biggest challenge I have always had with having coworkers, with my direct coworkers behind the bar, is getting them not to talk to the customer so much, or not to talk to me so much, so that we can listen to the room and give better service. One of the best experiences I've ever had in a bar was at Angel Share in New York City, in their former location, and Nell took me there that night back in 2009, and we had to wait, I think, 30 minutes for a seat because they don't serve you. They will not let you stand in their establishment, which I love. You must be seated. But when I went back again a couple years later, what really stuck out to me was these two guys behind the bar, and one starts a drink and sets, he's got 3 ingredients in the tin, and he sets it down on the back bar. And the other guy who's working on something else finishes what he's doing, picks up the tin the first guy had, picks it up, goes add something else to it, comes back, sets it back down exactly where it was sitting before. The first guy, as soon as he finishes the second thing he started doing, picks up that same shaker tin, and then finishes the drink and serves it. Not a word was uttered. Not a single word was uttered. And some people would look at that and go, "Oh, those guys are having a tiff." Oh, no. That is a well-run kitchen. Right in front of all the customers.
Yeah.
The customers were allowed to speak and have their conversations without being interrupted by all the nonsense behind the bar. It's magical.
Yeah.
So those 2 bars in New York City
made
the biggest impression on me.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nell. Auto Shrunking Head was also really great.
Now, I love watching a good bartender who's in the weeds and knows how to...
Dig out?
No, just like tactfully or cordially or whatever,
sure.
Ignore customers.
Oh, yeah.
Because you have to.
Yeah.
You got to get shit done.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you got to know just when to get back in and then back out again. It's... Ugh.
I've noticed that the chattiest customers always sit right in front of my computer, my POS system, where I ring in drinks and food. And I'm dyslexic. When you start talking to me when I'm trying to enter, and then the order gets entered wrong, or I forget something, it's so frustrating. And I've learned to just be honest. I'm like, I'm really sorry. I need to work on this right now. I'm dyslexic. I can't talk to you while I'm doing it. And again, I'm trying not to make it about me, but I'm trying to give better service, and I can't do that if I'm gabbing all the time. So, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
It's a tough one.
It is a tough one. Do you get a chance to go out much?
No.
Oh.
No.
Wow, there's a whole line of questioning shot in the ass.
and this post-COVID nonsense of bars closing at 11 o'clock at night is driving.
Yeah.
I mean, I work in one that closes at 9 o'clock, 10.
Well, the last episode I did was I talked to the guys at Old Forge over in Danville, the brew pub. And
My pizza shop just closed.
What's that?
The pizza shop that's famous for the Old Forge pizza just closed.
Up there in Old Forge. No, this was in Danville, but in Old Forge?
I believe so.
Wow.
Just read that 2 days ago.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry to derail you.
No, that's horrible. Anyway, they were saying just nobody stays past 9 anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just, I mean, I see the same thing.
There's no such thing as nightlife anymore.
No.
It's evening life.
Yeah.
That doesn't roll off the tongue.
Netflix.
Come on, guys.
No. I don't know.
You know, so I'll get out of work, and you know, if we close at 9, I'll get out of here at 11:30 because it takes that much to clean up.
Right.
And you know, I would love to go to Zeno's, but hey, they're only open until midnight. I'm not going to roll in at 11:45. That's not no. So
wow. If you do get a chance to go out, what's your go-to cocktail?
Ideally, it's a gin martini, a proper martini, or a Manhattan, preferably perfect. Basil Hayden, perfect up with a twist, is perfectly enjoyable for me. Don't put cherry juice in my Manhattan unless I ask for it, please. Don't. I don't order old fashions out. I tell people all the time. I make more old fashions than we really should be making in a place like this. Old fashions are a drink to make at home. They're very easy. 3 ingredients.
Yeah.
It's whiskey or spirit of choice. It doesn't have to be whiskey.
Sure.
Sugar and bitters. Splash of water if you really want to, you know. But you can make that at home.
I do, and that's exactly why.
Right. Like
I have a black
if you're out in a bar, order a Manhattan, order anything that's on the menu, of course, because that's why it's there. But a Manhattan, if you're a whiskey person, well, I don't know about the vermouth thing. Well, that's because classically, for many, many years, bar owners were cheapskates. They bought the worst vermouth possible, and they didn't use enough of it, and it sat there and went bad.
Yeah, I was going to say, large bottles.
It was a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
So, you know, the modern cocktail thing isn't what it was in the 70s, 80s. You can order a Manhattan and get a very good one now.
Okay, you've made me Manhattans, and they're really good. I
love Manhattans.
It's one of the reasons I come here when I do.
Sure.
What makes a really great one? I mean, I realize we just did talk about
good
it, but
spirits. I mean, the brands matter.
Yeah.
Like we said. Everybody's taste in whiskey is a little different. And I always ask people, are you looking for something bold? Are you looking for something softer? Are you looking for something sweeter, drier, spicy, spicy in terms of like that peppery thing that rye does? Mm-hmm. So you kind of narrow down what the customer wants there. And then once you get that part, it's like, well, do you like your Manhattan sweeter or drier? And if they say sweeter, then I'm just going to go classic and use sweet vermouth. Mm-hmm. And my other secret ingredient that I always use in my cocktails that gives them their thing. And it's vermouth meets bitters, essentially, when you think about what the ingredient is. But if they want something drier, then I'm going to go perfect. A perfect Manhattan is equal parts sweet and dry vermouth, which gives it a little more food friendliness in terms of like the way it plays around with whatever else you're eating. And then there's the dry Manhattan. Nobody orders the dry Manhattan anymore. I'm gonna put it on the menu here over the summer, I think.
Okay.
I've got a good bitters bottle that goes really well with the dry Manhattan. It has a celery seed note to it that really it pops just subtly.
What kind of whiskey do you put in then? Ideally.
So, what the heck was that one called? There was a whiskey a rye that came from Kentucky, and I lost track of them after COVID. I don't know where they went, but it has to be a dry. Like Rittenhouse is just a tiny bit too aggressive. Here's where I would do that thing we talked about earlier. In this case, I would probably use 1.5 ounces of Rittenhouse and 1/2 ounce of Old Farm to bring that youthful thing in.
Okay.
And then that'll play with the dry vermouth a little bit.
Wow.
So.
Okay. And that's a stir?
Yeah.
Not a shake.
No,
okay.
Correct. Yes. People ask that all the time. I get that one. Why do you stir things versus shake things? You shake things when there's dairy, egg, and then you can't even get to the third one. Egg? Why would you put egg?
Sorry.
Or juice.
No.
Dairy, egg, or juice is you shake it because it needs to emulsify so that it doesn't separate in your glass. And the egg thing, a sour. And I don't know what the history on this is. I have to look up Wondrich again. I thought he said that they were egg whites prior to Prohibition, and then I heard that they were that's a fabrication, that they were originally not with egg white. So I don't know what the answer to that is. But the egg white produces a meringue, which gives essentially a velvety texture. And if you've never had that, then you should experience that a couple times. Try not to order them on a day that it's raining because they don't turn out as well when it rains for whatever reason.
Just
the
physics
atmospheric pressure and the humidity. It just doesn't. Yeah, order it on a nice dry day.
Okay. That's all I've got. This has been a great lot of fun. Thank you.
I'm having fun. We can keep going for another hour if you want.
I know. I obviously should have had more script because more things come to mind, but they'd be scattered all over. And then I have to do editing, which I hate doing. Yeah. So, maybe we do it again.
Sure.
All right.
Look forward to it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Maybe we should have a drink.
We should have a drink. Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. What I didn't record was the drink I had afterward. Skerrick made me a dry Manhattan, and it was literally a revelation. If you're a Manhattan drinker and you've never had one, well, fix that error. He also ran me through the tinctures and assorted stuff he had behind the bar, including pickled pine cones. Those were awesome, and I think he said he gets them at the East European Market out on North Atherton. They are definitely not a non-functional garnish. They're delicious. We should talk briefly about the cost, because it's important at times like these, though maybe not the way you think. Drinking at Pine Grove Hall is by no means cheap, but neither is it crazy expensive. And so I want to emphasize something Skerrick said, somewhat reluctantly, but with truth. If you want your favorite bars to be there, you need to be able to financially support them. That goes for a lot of things. Your favorite breweries, condiments, butcher shops, cheeses, candies. If you want those to be there for Christmas splurges, for instance, you need to strongly consider making them a more regular stop. As a good friend of mine, Matt Geyer, says, I don't have a Hershey bar every day of the week. I have a piece of really good chocolate once a week. Having the good stuff, having a really good cocktail available when you want it, means some effort and expense on your part. Buying local, buying special is, it's a commitment. But I think I've found that making that commitment makes my life better in a number of ways. And it isn't always more expensive either. Sometimes it's surprisingly affordable, and you'll wonder why you were paying top dollar for something that's not really as good, or as sustainable, or as special. And that's why we're here every 2 weeks. That's what Seen Through a Glass is about. Finding those things, and encouraging ourselves to go out there and try new things. That's the show. My sincere thanks to Skerrick for the interview. It's well known that you don't do them with just anyone who asks, and I appreciate your trust. You can find pictures for this episode on Instagram at STAG Podcast and on Facebook at Seen Through a Glass. If you're listening to the show on the radio at WSOV, there are over 50 more episodes to enjoy on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Podbean. Really, all the popular podcast outlets. If you'd like to toss a bit in my hat to keep the show going, I have a coffee button in my Instagram link tree, that's at Stag Podcast, and at the Facebook page. If you've spent time in Pennsylvania bars, especially ones that aren't all that fancy, you've probably seen a number of bottles labeled with the Jacquin's name. You may not know it, but that's Pennsylvania's oldest distillery, located in the heart of Northeast Philly on Trenton Avenue, dating back to 1884. That's when Charles Jacquin, a descendant of a French cordial-making family, started making cordials in Philadelphia. And through various family and up through the ranks handoffs, they're still doing it, a rare independent legacy distiller. They also make the Pennsylvania eggnog that the state stores sell in case lots around the holidays, and the Rock and Rye that makes a pretty nifty pre-mixed cocktail itself, poured over ice with a slice of orange or lemon. I've had my share of Jacquins while dive bar hopping. A little PA booze history for you. What's coming up? I've got a barbecue interview recorded, but I think I might save that for warmer weather. I've got 2 other interviews set up, and we might do one of those. Or maybe it's time for another town profile. Wait, to think some podcasts actually have schedules that reach out a couple months. That is so not me. Anyway, whatever the next episode is, until then, thanks for listening. This is Lou Bryson with Seen Through a Glass in the smack dab center of the Keystone State.